Look at your driveway right now. Look at your closet. Look at the phone in your hand. I want you to understand something uncomfortable before we go any further. Most of the people trying to look poor right now are doing it wrong, and it's costing them the exact thing they think they're building. Because here's what nobody tells you. There are two kinds of people who look like they have nothing. The first kind is broke and hiding it. The second kind is wealthy and hiding it. From the outside, on that ordinary Tuesday at the stoplight, they look identical. The dented sedan, the 5-year-old phone, the plain jacket with no logo. But underneath the hood, they are running completely opposite engines. And if you copy the look without understanding the machine, you've just cosplayed poverty while staying exactly as broke as you started. My name is Divine. Today we're not doing another drive a boring car and get rich video. You've seen that one. You've probably already sold the flashy car. That's not the problem anymore. The problem is that looking poor was never the strategy. Looking poor is the side effect of the strategy. And people have fallen so in love with the side effect that they forgot to build the actual machine underneath it. Let me show you why you're doing it wrong and how to do it right. There's a story about islands in the Pacific during World War II. Soldiers landed, built runways, and suddenly cargo planes arrived full of food, medicine, and supplies. When the war ended, the soldiers left. So the islanders, wanting the planes to come back, built their own runways out of bamboo. They carved wooden headsets. They lit fires along the strip. They performed every visible ritual they'd watched, and they waited. No planes ever came. They copied everything you could see and none of the thing that actually mattered. That is exactly what most people do with stealth wealth. They see that rich people drive Toyotas, so they buy a Toyota and wait to become rich. They see that millionaires don't wear logos, so they cut the tags off and wait. They perform the visible rituals of wealth avoidance and wonder why no cargo plane of freedom ever lands. Driving the boring car doesn't make you wealthy. Driving the boring car and investing the difference makes you wealthy. If you skip the second half, you're just a broke person in a Corolla. You didn't win the game. You just stopped playing the losing version of it, which is a start, but it is not the finish. Mistake 1. You made frugality the goal instead of the fuel. Here's where a lot of people take a genuinely good idea and drive it off a cliff. They hear spending money to look rich makes you poor, and they conclude that the answer is to never spend money on anything. They turn the heat off in winter. They skip the doctor. They drive a car that breaks down every month because it was cheap. They eat like the goal of life is to die with the biggest number possible. That's not stealth wealth. That's just being poor with extra steps. The point of looking poor was never to be poor. It was to redirect the money you would have burned on appearances toward buying your own freedom. Frugality is the fuel. Freedom is the destination. If you're hoarding fuel and never driving anywhere, you've missed the entire point. The wealthy person in the dented Honda isn't suffering. His house is paid off, his kid's college is funded, and he could walk out of his job tomorrow. He looks like he has nothing because he has everything that matters, and none of it needs an audience. You're doing it wrong if your version of looking poor comes with anxiety, deprivation, and a spreadsheet you check 5 times a day out of fear. Done right, it comes with a strange, quiet calm. The point isn't to spend nothing. The point is to spend deliberately on what you actually value and spend 0 on what you're only buying to impress strangers who aren't even looking. Mistake 2. You're still performing just for a different crowd. This one is sneaky, and it might sting. A lot of the new underconsumption movement online has quietly become its own status game. People film their 5-year-old phone and their well-worn shoes and their cash-only grocery runs, and they post it. They're not hiding their wealth. They're advertising their frugality. They swapped one costume for another. Instead of performing richness, they're now performing poorness, and it's the exact same disease wearing a different jacket. If you're driving the boring car so that people will notice how humble and disciplined you are, you never left the treadmill. You just changed the scenery. True stealth wealth has no audience. Nobody is supposed to clap. The whole power of it is that it's invisible. and invisible things can't be performed. The moment you need someone to see how little you're still spending your energy on other people's opinions. You've just moved the performance to a channel that happens to be free. Real invisibility means your coworker genuinely has no idea. Your neighbor genuinely can't tell. There's no humble brag, no "I've had this jacket for 10 years" comment, no cash envelope video. There's just you, quietly winning a game nobody around you even realizes is being played. Mistake 3. You copied the habits without the understanding. This is the big one, and it's why almost everyone eventually fails. You can know that index funds beat car payments, but if you don't understand why, if you don't understand compounding in your bones, then the first time the market drops 30%, you'll panic and sell everything at the bottom and undo a decade of discipline in a single terrified afternoon. You followed the rule. You just never understood the rule. And rules you don't understand fall apart the exact moment life gets hard, which is the exact moment they were supposed to save you. This is the difference between two people who read the identical advice. One of them ends up with a growing account they barely think about. The other pulls everything out in a scare, locks in the loss, and spends the rest of their life telling everyone the whole thing is rigged. Same advice, different outcome. The only variable was whether they understood what they were doing. Looking poor is a strategy. Financial literacy is the operating system that strategy runs on. Without the operating system, you're just pushing buttons you don't understand and hoping. You need to actually know the difference between an asset and a liability. You need to know which debt builds you and which debt eats you. You need to understand how a modest income quietly turns into real wealth over decades. Because if you don't, you'll make confident decisions that happen to be completely wrong. The people who build lasting wealth aren't following more rules than you. They're following the same handful of simple principles, except they understand them deeply enough that the principles survive a bad week, a bragging coworker, and a scary headline. Understanding is what turns a fragile rule into an unshakable habit. So how do you actually do it right? Here's the corrected playbook. Not look poor. Build the machine and let looking poor be the shadow it casts. Decouple your income from your identity. When your paycheck grows, your life stays the same, and the difference goes to work. A raise is not permission to become a slightly more expensive person. It's a chance to widen the gap between what you earn and what you live on, because that gap, not the salary, is the raw material freedom is made from. Make saving automatic and spending difficult. Don't rely on willpower, because willpower runs out at exactly the wrong moment. Move the money the day it lands before it ever feels spendable. Build your life on what's left. When the money's gone before you see it, you adjust without drama, and you keep investing through the scary months, which are the months that matter most. Define enough before the money arrives. High earners stay trapped because they never draw a finish line, so every raise just shoves the target further away. Decide in advance what a sufficient home, a sufficient car, and a sufficient life look like. Then, let every dollar past that point build your freedom instead of inflating your lifestyle. Measure wealth in time, not stuff. The real number was never the car or the salary. It's how many months or years you could survive without a paycheck. That number is optionality. It's the ability to walk away from a job that's grinding you down, to take 6 months off when your family needs you, to say no to money that would cost you your integrity. That's what all of this actually buys. Not a badge, freedom. And build the foundation first. Before you sell the car, before you cancel the subscriptions, before you do anything visible, make sure you genuinely understand how money grows when you leave it alone and how debt compounds against you when you don't. Get the operating system installed. Then, every sacrifice stops feeling like sacrifice and starts feeling like the obvious move you'd never want to make any other way. Go back to that stoplight one last time. The luxury SUV in one lane, the dented Honda in the other. You already know the twist. The plain car is more likely to be free, and the flashy one is more likely to be drowning. But here's the deeper twist, the one this whole video was really about. Looking poor was never the achievement. Some people looking poor are broke. Some people performing poor online are still just chasing applause. And some people copied the boring car without ever understanding the machine underneath it, so they got the costume and none of the freedom. The goal was never to look rich, but the goal was never just to look poor either. The goal was to be free and to understand the game deeply enough that you stop needing anyone to watch you play it. Freedom is quiet. It doesn't need a badge, a logo, or a caption. It just needs you to understand it well enough that looking poor stops being a strategy you force yourself to follow and becomes the natural shadow of a life you actually built. So the next time you feel that pull, to spend money proving something or to perform frugality for a feed, remember the Honda. And remember that the person driving it isn't trying to look like anything at all. They're just free. And they never needed you to notice. If you're ready to stop performing entirely, rich or poor, and start building the real thing, subscribe. We don't do costumes here. We do the machine underneath.